Just want to start off saying thank you very much for participating. Did take a quick look in terms of some of the YouTube videos of your first two games, and it seems like you guys have put a ton of investment and a lot of effort into this, so which I think is great. And but I thought maybe we could just first start by having you talk a little bit about, can you talk about yourself and Sandforge Games, the team, like how everything got kind of put together? Just give everyone a little bit of context in terms of who you guys are.
Yeah, for sure. Just first of all, yes, I would like to thank you as well. Like giving us this opportunity. Helping us out. It's been a pleasure. Especially that, I'm listening to your podcast like almost every week.
Great, thank you.
So yes, like I graduated, with an accounting degree and worked, a typical job, and then suddenly I had an opportunity, to work on the gaming industry. My brother is actually like an entrepreneur, and he started like a few e-businesses. So he thought, maybe let's jump into the wagon of mobile games. So we had like a very long, maybe 6 years, just riding along the learning curve.
Yeah.
Mobile games. It's been really tough, especially that there is no industry here, there is no expertise. So it's been very tough. We started with, runner games, and then slowly we moved to mid-core games. And I tried to learn, everything about free-to-play games, how to monetize, how to retain. And this is where we are now, It's like we decided to just focus into one genre, which is the build and battle strategy games.
Yeah.
And the team, I wouldn't say that they have like a vast experience, basically they were along, with us in this rough ride. So it's like whatever we have, we all learned it, by multiple tries, multiple attempts, Currently we are 3 people, so it's me. I handle the game design and the project management, and then I have 2 programmers with us.
Okay.
And everything else is like outsourced, art, voice, acting, or narrative. Everything is outsourced.
Got it.
We're funded by we have like a fund from the Kuwaiti government.
Okay.
For small businesses. So basically we took like a fund, and we have enough funding, to, just push out one game.
Okay.
And like in terms of the risk, we decided to keep working on what we know best, it has, I think, the best chances, success. And this is where we are now, like as I shared with you the document, you can see like all the things that we tried, and believe me, we tried in that genre,
Right. And just to give people listening some context, it seems like, and maybe you can tell me, but just looking at your history, so you guys first launched this game called Warlanders, and it kind of seems like Clash of Clans plus Game of War put together, right? With kind of like a Kingdom Rush, Ironhide art style.
Exactly, yeah.
And then from there, you guys then took that game, and then you kind of pivoted it to this game called Mini Kingdoms, where it's basically you guys got rid of the March Battle kind of 4X part, and then kind of shifted the troop building in the buildings to more of an energy system rather than your traditional Clash of Clans system, right?
Exactly.
And then and maybe we can show some video of that, and we can show people, sort of that evolution. And then in terms of this third game, which you're calling Warfronts, what you're trying to do is you're trying to add a little bit more of system design and depth in terms of the gameplay, and then also keeping that energy mechanic, right? Is that a good characteristic?
The biggest thing I would say is like the production value.
Okay.
It's like we were really like actually putting some effects, like Mini Kingdoms Warlands, that there was no effects, everything was like, just let's make it understandable, and that's all. We don't care about looks good or no. No, there is a narrative, there is a lore, there is, really putting some effort into the quality of the game entirely, from programming to everything else.
Got it. Okay. And then is there any gameplay that you can kind of share screen with us? Or I actually might have it as well, so I could kind of share screen, and maybe we can kind of walk through the first game and the second game.
No, I actually like the servers for the 2 games is we closed it.
Oh,
And
well, yeah,
the
I was just
last
talking
game,
about like maybe YouTube videos or something.
yeah, but I'm not sure if I have something ready right now. You know
Okay.
that.
Let me try and share something then. Hold on.
Yeah, if like the videos I share, we can check them out. I could like explain just a few elements.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah,
Okay. And so
yeah. So
here, and so when you guys first started, the battle mechanic here is more Clash of Clans, right? Where you just drop and then the army units will just kind of auto path and find what buildings to attack. Is that right?
exactly, and also you can see like the units here. They had like some physicality to them.
Yeah.
How they move and basically like here we didn't know where to give the weights for certain elements and features. So we thought, no, the units moving, in a good way, it might be like amazing. But we had no clue that people, didn't care at all.
Right, and then you had I kind of showed that 4x part, and I also kind of show maybe this part here where you actually did have like the marching and the battle and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, which was crazy, for this type of game. We were wondering like why no one have implemented this.
Yeah, and just by the way, because you're talking to the guy, you're talking to Mr. Game of War right now with Paul. And then, our team at Fun Plus on King of Babylon, we had like, our core team was like 60 some odd people, plus we had another tech team of 19. So like 3 people going after that market is very, so I commend you for your ambitiousness. Right? Like, I mean, you guys do not lack in sort of like the go for it spirit. So that's great. But yeah, I would definitely say like the pivot to something a little more tractable is definitely like probably a good move. And then
but JK, if you just allow me to just say one thing, it's like the reason for that is that we thought we needed to see where areas in Clash of Clans that they lacked,
yes,
and where we can add value.
Right.
One thing was the social,
yeah,
and Clash of Clans, like when you attack someone, when you get attacked, you're basically like getting attacked by someone who you don't know who he is or what happened exactly. We wanted something where it is more social. So that's why we added the map. You might see, people next to you, people moving. So we thought that, this would really add value.
Right. And just to be clear. So I think that line of thinking is the right way to think, right? So like, what can you guys do on top of Clash of Clans to kind of make it more appealing, better? These type of sort of March Battle 4X games do have a strong social component where that encourages cooperation, that's like, it makes the game feel alive when you've got so much chatter happening, you've got different battles going on, and it feels like a live world. So that part, I definitely think that like thinking in terms of how do we make this better and how do we add our whatever your +1 game design element is, that's fantastic. I think the only thing I was saying is that you then also have to think about in terms of like the practical execution, like what kind of team do we have and what is it going to take to be successful against that vision? Because who knows, maybe that vision could work. I mean, who knows? But then you guys would have to actually execute that, which would require a pretty robust team and budget and things like that. So anyway, so yeah, then you guys shifted to more of the straight up Clash of Clans design. Although I did notice that in terms of the building and troops, you guys changed that a little bit. Can you speak to kind of your thinking in terms of switching to an energy mechanic?
Yeah. So basically, like what we learned from the map is that the infrastructure is too much for us to handle. We would invest like a lot of time just to optimize the matchmaking only, which was like a disaster. We had like areas, teleport, and it was a disaster. So we thought, okay, what else can we improve compared to Clash of Clans? So we said, okay, let's make it simpler, faster, and more meaningful, like in strategic depth in the battle.
Right.
So this was our attempt.
I did notice, like one of the things you guys added was this notion of like pathing or building attack priority, which is a little bit different. I thought it was interesting. You guys tried that.
Yeah, that one was like, we want the decision to be more informed. Most of the time when you play these games, like you put your army and you're not sure, you might blame the AI or something like this. So here we put like more control with the player. That way the decision might be like more strategic compared to, just like randomness, out of randomness, And the energy mechanic was to make it, faster. So there is no training, there is no wait time. You get in, you play like 2 or 3 games, whatever like we thought was optimal, and then you just build, and then the session is done.
Right. Yeah. Although I think but that's kind of part of Clash of Clans, or a game like Game of War is building out all your units and then depleting those units and then building them back up again and depleting them. So there are certainly going to be like system design effects and potentially monetization effects by having that sort of a decision that's more.
I thought there would be like an extreme effect, but like one of the problems that we're having was that nothing was changing.
Right. Although
we're being really frustrated.
These impacts may actually come more mid to late game as you're as you're getting like more and more resources. But that was also an interesting point that you made. So you had an initial set of KPIs around D1730 retention for that first design. You kind of stripped out the March battle stuff, and then you shifted more focused on Clash of Clans with the change in terms of the energy system. And then you actually didn't see much of a difference in your KPIs. Were they like almost exactly the same, or what was the delta?
I would say that the initial like 3 days we noticed a difference. So if like Warlanders, for example, the one with the March and Battle had like 30% or 27% day one.
Yeah.
The new version got like maybe 35.
Okay.
Day one.
Yeah.
So there was a slight increase.
Right, and I think you could kind of expect something like that where you've got a game with like a lot of complexity, and then you kind of stripped out some of that complexity. So then it's like the core loop and the final gameplay. People are like, oh, okay, this is kind of like Clash of Clans or whatever. So you would expect a little bit of an increase, which it seems like you saw. So so that's good. And then so now it sounds like what you're saying is this third game, and I haven't seen video of this third game, but this game you're calling Warfronts is basically going to be this game with higher production value primarily. That's a primary differentiator.
Yeah, primary, and then some other adjustments. We saw some problems with like deploying units as a group instead of individual units.
Yeah.
So there was some less amount of strategies and options to do. So we're fixing like small things like that.
Right. So I guess one of the recommendations I would make, and sorry, Paul, we should have you kind of cut in as well. But is this enough in the sense that so we've got this Clash of Clans like game. You've kind of shifted the monetization to be more energy based, which potentially will impact your mid to late game monetization. Like it might actually drop it down. And then, you've got to actually like create something that's compelling enough to get players in where like how are you going to get Clash of Clans players into your game relative to Clash of Clans or new players to come in when they've got Clash and they've got other kind of, Clash-like games out there. And so I think that, like the building attack stuff and some of the more subtle things, I think, whether they're improvements or not, and, that's going to be harder for players to kind of see and to experience without getting really deep into it. So I would actually recommend like more on your front end metrics, or like when players first come in, is there some differentiation that you can kind of show off, almost immediately to the players. So they're like, okay, this is Clash, but it's got these different things. And that's one of the great things that the guys that made Dominations did, is like when you come into Dominations, it's like immediately, okay, there's like these little weird bears and crap on the sides. And then there's like this high level concept around, okay, we're doing civilizations, we're going to build up and go and progress through different ages and things like that. And so from a high level concept perspective, it's like, okay, there's an interesting fiction, there's an interesting sort of objective in terms of civilizations. And then when they go in from the gameplay perspective, even though the core gameplay is the same, people are able to see these like slight differences and nuances with respect to like, how the game actually looks and feels to them, even though they're kind of minor, right? But they're surfaced in a very strong way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think like what we did was that initially, so once the user comes in,
Yeah.
we wanted the first thing to notice is the difference in the art style where it's 2D, is like much easier to understand, much easier to grasp, and then we have like the narrative of it,
Yeah.
with the factions, and I didn't share it, because it's it's like a big document, but we really invested a lot of time in the narrative and the factions and the story and the campaign and how you interact with the campaigns and dialogues and things like that. So you would really get, like a different feel initially from it. And then let's say something after it, which is the perk system with the units. So basically, if you have like your basic footman, you would be able to select from two perks, whether you want the footman to have like a last stand ability where instead of dying he would have like a brief time where he would do extra damage, or you can get the extra damage up front where he would like have extra damage on deploy. So for all the units, all spells, all our heroes, we have like this system, which I think would add like a lot of customization, and this is something I think players would notice initially, because the first thing you would go in these type of games is the barracks. Go directly, let me see the units and let me see what do I have, so I think these would be the initial things. The last thing I would say is the world map. So this is something that we really need like to focus on.
Yeah.
Which is like, instead of you press the button, then you have the UI, PD, PvP, you would have a world map, and here we would put like, a lot of events, a lot of small things that you would interact with, which would hopefully, give us like a different feel than Clash of Clans, for example.
Is the game that you're building now, would it have a battle mechanic like how I'm seeing on Joseph's screen right now? Would it have similar battle mechanic?
Yes. Okay. And we've invested like a lot of time into the depth and different strategies and whatnot.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I work with people on games that they don't feel have strategy, like a game that has like a math equation to the battle, like a march battle, for example, they'll say like it's not strategic, and it's not fun because it's just a math equation. Yeah. And I think where they get lost is like the strategy in a game where there's an instant math equation in the battle is in the preparing of the battle is the strategy, right? Like the hitting of the battle isn't necessarily the strategy, but it's lining up the shot. Like getting shot in your head isn't very strategic, but the guy who pulled the trigger was the one who was strategic. So when we think of like march battles, like I always try to explain it like this long, this long crawl of like a slow moving bullet. And I'm not sure how this, I'd have to really try to play it. But like, I think about a few things when I look at these games. I think about like the transformation of time, moving through a map. One of the marches that I saw in the video looked fairly fast. And I think about the way in which we deplete like our games. Like, for example, if you sell like a popsicle and he has to lick it for like 2 months for it to get to the stick, it's not a really good experience, right? So when we take a long time to get rid of troops, when we take a long time after we sell somebody something for $1, and then it could take like a week for them to spend it, we have a problem with like reoccurring visits, reoccurring purchases, and in free to play, it's so difficult to like create a world for everyone, right? Like where my nephew's been playing Clash Royale for a year and he's never spent a dime, but Clash Royale is still a top grossing app, right? It's a very complicated piece of art to be able to, it's there for the guy who doesn't spend and it's there for the guy who does, and everyone in between. So like when I see a game working really well, I generally look at it in kind of like this, I guess you would call it like a weird sense of how kind of time is being used and then how it's going away. So when I hear about the concept of trying to use world map plus this sense of like also dropping troops in, I don't think it's crazy. I agree with Joseph that I think trying new things is great, and I actually believe that changing your mind fast and working slow is like the wrong way to go. I think a good game designer comes to a decision quickly and changes his mind very slowly. because else I feel, in my personal opinion, the organization is just everywhere, right? Like you have to really stick with your vision and go for it. Of course, you should seek advice. You're doing that. That's great. I do that, but most of the time I treat the idea like it's really, really solid. And I say, hey, look, we're going to freaking figure this out. But when we have March battles, I don't know how fast you guys are moving these things or if there's speed ups behind it. And then you also have like the end point where we have to throw these things down. The first thing that I would say is that I believe the point in which they have to build troops and then send troops and then do this, it could be a little high friction, or it could be super fun depending on what it's like to actually maneuver marsh battles on the map, because that in and of itself is actually a part of the whole game, right? And you know that being on a map and being located and teleporting around is super fun. So then mixing that with Clash of Clans, it could be a really good experience. But like the philosophy behind both of those combined, it did and will create a new challenge for you. But it really just depends on how I think epic the battles are within these cities. Because like, for example, the philosophy behind the Clash Royale system is you press battle and then boom, the clouds clear and you're ready to go. That's a very, very fast way to get the popsicle to the stick. In other words, right? It just goes wham. You know, free to play is kind of like eating a burrito, right? You get a burrito and it's over. You buy a soda and it's over. A lot of things in this world are like that, right? You wash your clothes, the damn buzzard buzzes, right? And then you put it in the dryer and then the dryer's over. So when we look at like the time in which it usually takes us to consume movies and things like that, and then we look at some of the most successful games, like I was just playing AFK Arena. And don't get me wrong, there's some slower paced games. But when you press in Clash Royale, it's like boom, you drop into the battle, and then in games like a March battle game, you send that amount out, and that little thing moving is the strategy, right? Within it holds all of your stuff, and it's moving towards a definite end. And then it could cost to return it, or you know what I'm saying? Because now you lose time, and someone else is coming at your city, so it's like, oh boy, right there's my big boom. So you have this weird thing where it's like you're sending this massive amount of troops out, and I'm not sure if that's leaving your city undefended, and then now it's moving towards somebody else, and then they have to do that, all this movement, which keeps their city very vulnerable, you know what I'm saying? Because they lose troops. I don't know if there's a defending mechanic or if those troops actually help defend the city. I'd have to check it out more, but just to give you like just an overview of some of my thoughts on that real quickly, because I know we have limited time and we can of course do further follow-up calls and stuff like that, because I could talk about game design too long.
So Khaled, the way that I'm actually thinking about your game is pretty simple. So one, you know, I'm thinking about it in terms of three ways. One is like the high-end concept, secondly the gameplay, and thirdly the meta, the systems design, right?
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, in terms of the high level like concept, I'm not sure if there's enough, you know, of a, you know, what's called a strange attractor, or enough like as you're marketing this game to the public, when they see, okay, I kind of see these like, you know, Kingdom Rush, Ironhide type graphics, and also very similar to Clash of Clans, kind of like a mix. I'm wondering if there's like a stronger hook that you can use on the high end, right? In terms of the if there's something you can convey, whether it's through art style or fiction or something, to be a stronger draw for players as you're marketing the game. From a gameplay perspective, I do think that we still are pretty close to Clash of Clans, and some of the nuances that you're building into the game. You know, maybe players will notice that quickly, or maybe it'll be too late, even if it's better. But I'm not sure if it's enough to be, you know, super compelling or differentiated enough where people are going to be like, I want to play, you know, this game instead of Clash of Clans. And from the meta systems design perspective, you know, I think it is interesting what you're trying to do in terms of the world map. But yeah, again, I'm not sure if that's enough, or whether, you know, kind of the shift from the troop system to an energy system is going to long-term be like a better monetization or choice. So, you know, kind of like my recommendation would be, one, like, you know, all of us have, limited time, limited resources. You guys are kind of going down a path right now, and you're kind of increasing the production value. You're about to launch. I would say like let's check the metrics, right? Like go down that path. But if what you launch, if there needs to be a change, I would really try to kind of step back and think very fundamentally, very deeply about, okay, here are these 3 axes of potential improvement for the game, whether it's the high level concept, whether it's a gameplay, whether it's a systems design, and then really think about, because we might be at a sort of, local maxima in terms of how well the game can do. But if we make a really big change, we could potentially find an even bigger maxima in terms of like the performance and the ability of the game to do well, right? And so So yeah, I would start to think, and we can, like, between Paul and myself, like Paul is I gotta say, like, if you want like crazy whoop ass ideas, Paul's the right guy. So we could like depending on how things go, we could try and brainstorm some stuff to try and introduce some of those bigger changes that might actually make a bigger difference. But as of right now, at least your D1 for like a mid-core game is probably right on target, about 35% D1. So I think that's fine, and then we can always add a bunch of tricks to get that 35 up to like a 30. Like we can get two to 5 more points on that for you. But then it'll be about trying to figure out which of those things that we change so that we have a longer term, more sustainable, more successful game. If that makes sense.
Okay, got it. So it makes perfect sense. You're saying like it's like the initial kick or whatever you would call it. It's like it's still not there yet. So we need something that would really make the user feel like this is something fresh. Not just another.
Right. My suspicion is that what we have right now is not enough, is my suspicion. I know I could be wrong, but so I would say that you guys are going down this path. But what like, and when I think very simply about what do we have Clash of Clans with like the sort of Kingdom Rush type of art style, and then we've got like the energy system instead of troop building. And then we've got some, interesting mechanics in terms of the gameplay, in terms of like attack priority and things like that, and powers and stuff. And is that enough? I'm not, so I'm not quite sure about that. So what I would say is let's find out. And then the other stuff that you talked about adding, like narrative, production value, we'll find out. Like narrative in these kinds of games, typically people will kind of skip through, but let's find out. You guys are already working on it. And I would say like, the data will tell us whether those things actually move the needle or not. But generally, like in my experience, to make like really big changes, you do need like bigger, like there were games I've worked on where there's just like a fundamental issue, right? And so all these features and all these things that we added, and it's like, okay, no change. But then when you make a change where like the basic foundation is solid, then every change you put in, there's like, oh, plus 10%, oh, plus 5%, oh, plus 15%, right? And everything you do adds on because the foundation is very solid. And so I think that's the point where we'd love to try and help you get to, is the point where, there is enough, whether it's, front end differentiation and being very compelling, or the gameplay is really cool and unique. The systems design is like solid. Like to get to that sort of point, we'd be happy to try and help get you there. But hopefully, like, I hope you're there now. So don't get me wrong. I think we should like launch and see what the data is. But if it's not quite there, and if the sort of the other changes that we're kind of putting in aren't getting us there, then I think we could try and help you think about, okay, what's a bigger change to make a bigger impact? Because we want the game to like be very successful, right? So
yeah, exactly. No, and it's definitely like helps from an outsider point of view. Might be like we might inflate everything because we worked on it, so we think the narrative is amazing because we put a lot of effort into it. But yeah, like as you said, players maybe they don't care, and the same with the other features. So I think you have a good point. It's like thinking about it. Really, yeah, I think it's not enough. A powerful enough kick.
Right.
Initially.
Yeah, and so like in terms of like follow up, one of the things that I would recommend are.
Yeah.
So we could try and I can send you a set of metrics that would be good to get some, data telemetry and instrumentation on in terms of just trying to help us understand like what features or what things could help improve the game. And so I think what we could do is Paul and I could like offline talk about some ideas and things like that. And then I will send you a list of like KPIs that would be useful for us to track, so that when we launch this newer version of the game, that we can get that data and kind of look at it, and then hopefully that will help inform us. What are the key areas that we need to push? Is it monetization? Is it D7 retention? What are the things, or is it even the front end as you're kind of like advertising the game? And if the IPM is low, IPM install rate, whatever is low, then maybe we need a stronger concept, for example. And so I'll go ahead and send you like a set of metrics to sort of capture. But then, it seems like maybe the best next step would be when is the new version of the game launching?
Launching, it's still maybe like a few months at least, but I think we will need like 2 to 3 months to have like the user testing for the first session.
Got it.
This is what we're aiming at now. Okay.
Then it's sort of up to you in terms of what you want to do with the game. I think that if you're kind of like deep into the current path, I would say let's just finish the current path and see where we are, and then we can kind of come up with some contingency plans if that path doesn't work, like how we would some optimizations in terms of how we can improve stuff, or bigger changes to try to move the needle against some of those metrics that I talked about. But you could tell us. But my recommendation then would be, I'll send you that list of KPIs. If we can just kind of finish up the current path and then collect the data, and then from there, Paul and I can try and help you in terms of trying to determine the appropriate way to like help optimize or have the game perform better.
Yeah, it sounds good. And I think what I could do is also I could document, my vision more, so you might like connect the dots better.
Okay.
I think there are some things that I left out, maybe like if you have the full vision, maybe you can, okay, they have this, that.
I see. Okay. So maybe as a next step, we could do that, like maybe in the next week or two, if you want to document that, and we can kind of go over that. And then I can also go over some of the KPIs that we want to track. So maybe as a next call, we can go over that stuff. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Okay. It sounds good, but if you don't mind, like, can you just help me? Like, what would be like? What should I document? Like, should I document what I have planned for the events? How am I going to do the monetization, the matchmaking? How deep should I go?
As deep as you can. We love depth.
I have tons and tons.
We're all about deep. So that would be great. And then even if you have like a like a features roadmap plan.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing to do is like if you guys are pressed for time, we can try to help you think through how you would do like feature prioritization and things like that, and to like build a framework in terms of like expected outcomes, or an ICE framework or something to help structure your sort of future development plan.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay. And then I'll try to do that. Basically, I'm going to summarize like the entire game.
Awesome.
And then hopefully you would get a better vision.
Okay. So, all right. So then we'll schedule another call for the next week or two, and then go over that. And but yeah, again, thank you very much. Thank you. So Paul and I love talking to developers. Love these interesting challenges, and so it's really fantastic for us.
Yeah, I look forward to taking a look at some of these docs. I agree with Joseph when he started saying like some of the roadmaps and potentially checking out, deeper philosophies of yours. Because I can't help to think of the games when I was on, and if there is a consulting position, like opportunity, sometimes we're like 90% through with a big feature that someone's like, I don't know if this is going to work. you know, and that's like really, it's really hard. So knowing where you're at in the development process is really useful because free to play is about working with the features we have. You know, like I was just checking out AFK Arena where Justin was asking me to check it out. The game reuses his technology so well, and it just keeps going. And it's just it's such a win. Like it's such a win in creativity and technology that I was just like, you know what, this is really good free to play. And you're talking, and then after doing that all day yesterday, which I made a video on, I'll be posting it today. I hear you talking about building more and more and more, and we get trapped in that. Sometimes the technology we have is just enough. So I'm going to be looking at that too. So yeah, just send us the list, and thank you for calling us. It's been a really interesting call, and yeah, I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you guys.
Yeah.
So JK, you're going to schedule like a call?
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, maybe the week after next week, since next week is E3. But yeah, if we can do that, that would be awesome. I'd love to.
Okay, anytime. You know, anytime, whenever you have time, the most convenient for you, I'm up for it.
Great.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for your time. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.